Dan Ryckert.
Yes, hello, Ben Hansen.
Welcome back to MinnMax. The blood of your enemies.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, it was a bloody coup we did here. What is this, our third, this isn't really an exit interview.
This is your third exit interview, I guess entrance interview, reboot?
I actually didn't really go anywhere, technically.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Well, no, you technically did. You joined a new organization, a new company
A new company
entirely.
is formed, yes.
Right,
yes.
you're no longer getting checks from Fandom.
That is true, that is true.
By the way, hello. This is an interview for MinnMax. MinnMax, the place about games, friends, getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, that's Dan Ryckert.
Hello.
Check the previous two videos. I went and looked at the last one, and it ended... What was your note? You're like, I'm very optimistic about where it's all going. And then I said, hey, I'll see you in a couple years to talk about your new adventure. And so we are right on cue for like 3 years later.
I think neither of us were wrong then, right? I was optimistic about where it's going, and it went to a better place. Right? Like, I was right.
Yeah, I guess you were ultimately right. Yeah. I have a feeling this is going to implode, and then I'll own it. And then that's the better place, ultimately.
Yeah, I think being a co-owner of a company is a step up from where I was, so yeah.
I asked Leo Vader, like, hey, do you got any questions for Dan? He said, yeah, number one question, do you think there'll ever be some vengeance from the Lord himself for this level of luck in your life?
Everyone, look, people say the luck thing. People I know that don't believe in cosmic luck or anything like that. And then suddenly when it comes to me, ooh, it's crazy cosmic luck. No, I don't believe in luck at all. Are you telling me it's like a cosmic luck thing?
No, first of all, lower your tone. No, I'm not saying it's a cosmic luck thing.
You come to my house, I'm going to beat your ass.
They'll stop, right? At some point, they'll stop.
Yes.
By the way, if you're watching this, thank you. MinnMax is also an independent games outlet. You can hit subscribe on our YouTube channel if you want to help support us directly. It's a tiny click for you, and it is a huge thing for us. So cheers to you, sticky little Matt. Appreciate everybody hitting subscribe.
Is that one of your biggest supporters, Sticky Little Matt?
They're great, actually.
Yeah, really? Okay.
They recently jumped up to the $10 tier, which has been
Oh,
great.
Matt,
They're
great.
very
That's
supportive.
excellent, yeah.
We pitched a show for Initial Plus the other day that I was very excited about, and it didn't win. But it was called Eric Arena.
Okay.
And so it was going to be, we were going to send an email to every Eric who supports us on Patreon and give them the offer like, hey, we'll find some nonsense free-to-play game that's like browser-based, but just to see if like there's one Eric that'll be left at the end, we'll give them a grand prize. But the show would be like competition, and every episode, if it kept going for Initial Plus, it would be a different popular name of like Chris Arena, Randy Arena. Wouldn't that be fun just to get an email out of the blue, like, fight for being the #1 Dan that's the fan of MinnMax?
This is why you're the best in the business.
And it didn't win the vote.
I would have voted like 5 times.
I know.
Wait, is the initial one Eric Arena? Is that even a pun on it? It's not like Quake Arena. It doesn't rhyme with something Arena.
No, we had a very in-depth conversation about what's the funniest combination.
one.
It's like, I think the name Eric and Arena is the funniest thing to get.
And
the
Eric
idea.
is common enough. Yeah, that's probably the right call.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks.
Of course.
Anyways, how would you summarize this whole thing up? You've been here now you're coming on the end of your first week with the fully independent Giant Bomb.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Very, very good. There's a lot of stuff up in the air. 'Cause I wonder how it compares to like when you started MinnMax. Because like, did you start the company and everything, the LLC and all that stuff like right away, and the
it was
bank
like
accounts and all that stuff, and payroll and
offshore tax fraud stuff. And so that was like, it was. I mean, I had like a month to do it or so before I knew I was out the door. So it was nice, and I was listening to Gimlet's series on like starting a company. I remember that podcast series was really interesting. Controversy noted. The company didn't end well.
Is your reply all still on? I know something happened and now it's not a thing, or it's a different thing?
They kind of branched off. They're doing their own thing. Okay. I had time, basically, a little bit of time, a little bit of runway to kind of set everything up with MinnMax, and then it was like, okay, we can confidently launch it like right when I left Game Informer back in 2019.
Yeah, we had like a week basically, and because of the Jeffs being the ones who so to go back to what you said, the Jeffs were offered it first because they were the first out the door. And so technically, like all of that early stuff and just the negotiations and everything with lawyers and Fandom and everything, that happened with the Jeffs, while Jan and I just kind of sat back, and then we quit. And right like the day before the PAX panel was our last day. So the Jeffs kind of had to deal with all of the super long calls and everything. And even now, it's like kind of this period now where it's like things are still getting locked in and like the paperwork's been signed. It's a binding thing. It's happening.
Right.
But once that's all binding, then that's when me, Jan, and Minotti get technically added in as, we're 20% co-owners.
So technically, as of this recording, you're not an owner of Giant Bomb.
I mean, it was part of the whole thing. Was that, like, our names are on papers and agreements and things like that. So, like, I guess by letter of the law, I guess the company doesn't exist right now. I mean,
interesting.
Funds are coming in, and we have control of them, but like, we still have to like lock in the company stuff. It's just this takes a long time, and the Jeffs, have managed all of that.
Yeah. What about the site? Grub mentioned recently, like, the site's complicated, which I think we all knew. There's a lot of old history there. Even Nextlander and Gerstmann were talking about, like, oh, Christ, that site, good luck.
That site's been around for a long time, and it was definitely, like, intertwined with GameSpot in a way. So it's like the whole CMS and everything. So we were talking to people much smarter than us about how to make that work. But in the meantime...
Is there a percentage chance that it won't work, that you won't have this?
I don't know. I wouldn't even feel comfortable, like, tech knowledge stuff, like, with that type of stuff. I
can't even finish the word.
Technology. Yes. Yeah. Gee, I don't know how this works. No.
That's why he's the best in the biz, folks.
That's right, folks.
Hey, folks, you enjoying this, folks?
Advertise with giantbomb.com. Yeah, so I like a lot of work is going into that because obviously we would like to continue having a website and everything. It's just complicated, and I don't want to say anything specifically because I wouldn't know what I'm talking about right now. But just know that we would like to keep that website and
right.
Yes.
Yeah, because the website is, I mean, with the amount of ads running on there, it's like it is a good profit generator is the idea.
That also is confusing. The whole thing is confusing, and again, this is the avenue that I don't know how to talk about. Yes.
Okay. The avenue you don't know how to talk about. Got it. Have you gotten a kick out of all like the images of the dominoes and all that stuff for like how this whole thing happened? Is that the biggest thrill? Is just people putting different things into the?
That is fun. Yeah. After the Gerstmann interview, the thing about the KFC Double Down sandwich leading to it being independent is very funny.
Yeah. And I saw like it was pretty quickly. I think in the Discord for Giant Bomb, someone's like, this is just like the end of 30 Rock with Kenneth. Or it's even like, Succession, I'm just like the most unlikely person.
Oh, don't say I'm Tom. I'm not Tom. I don't want to be any of them, but I don't want to be...
Tom and Jason, you're in the ballpark. I don't know who you're closer to.
Am I more of a Roman? That's bad too.
That's horrific.
I don't want... It's better than Kendall. I'll take Roman over Kendall.
Shiv-esque?
They're all bad.
Okay.
They're all bad. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So a nice positive version of that idea.
Yeah.
But is it insulting at a certain point where people start saying like, you? Co-owner of Giant Bomb?
No, I honestly think it's hilarious because it's like, oh, look, I'm very aware of like the image I put out there. And so it's like, it was a genuine, like, just cracking up when Gerstmann introduced me, if you saw the Gerstmann interview. He said the co-owner of Giant Bomb, and we both just started laughing because, like, I think in that moment we both realized how ridiculous that sounds.
That was very heartwarming to hear.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. I love doing that.
I don't know if you listened to, like, the latest two Nextlanders, just hearing them unpack it.
No.
Last week's in particular, I guess 2 weeks ago at the time of this recording, with Gerstmann and Nextlander, look, this isn't diving into all the weeds on that, but this is what it's going to be, is diving into all the weeds on that.
Sure.
No, but just hearing them, it's so fascinating because you can just tell there's so much weight when they talk about Giant Bomb in their voice of just like, you hear a decade of stress and, frustrations on every end of the spectrum for them. And it's really fascinating to hear them be like, we're super happy for those guys. God, it's a weird feeling. And you can tell like they have so much pride still in what they did build with Giant Bomb.
Yeah.
It's such a weird mix.
I mean, I don't think, with our histories, with, Game Informer stuff, I don't think we can quite relate to the level that they must feel about Giant Bomb.
I can imagine a little bit with MinnMax.
With MinnMax, yes. Currently, yes.
Sure.
But I mean, I'm talking about like in the past,
Yeah.
And what they did was they broke off and they made something that kind of changed games media forever. And then, like you said, there was lots of, just troubles and frustrations and sales and things like that, like, of course that's gotta, like, it's gotta be very, very complicated. For me, Giant Bomb is less complicated.
Yeah.
Because, like, I came on and it was, like, already sold to CBS, I wasn't there for those, like, let's build this thing from the ground up days or whatever. Like, I can't take credit for any of that, obviously. That was happening long before I came on.
Yeah.
So I just kind of came on and it was already, like, this big force in the industry. And it's, like, all of a sudden just, like, oh, like I went from like kind of like a niche group of people like knowing replay and the stuff we did at Game Informer to suddenly like, oh, there's fan art and PAX panels with like huge lines and stuff like that. So I got to kind of come in and just reap the benefits, I guess. So for me, it's not like...
And the reaping's been good.
So it's just not complicated for me. I think about Giant Bomb and I'm like, yes. And like there were frustrations that I was like certainly recent past that had some frustrating elements which led to the end of corporate owned Giant Bomb.
Yeah.
But like... I don't know. I don't know if I'm just like impervious to feeling bad about these. Like I just like
Doctor.
What? No, I mean I just don't really like. Even things that were really, like, I think about, like, when I was leaving Game Informer.
Yeah.
I had all sorts of, I was bitching to you probably more than anyone about the stuff at the end of Game Informer. And, like, now I think back to, like, even the people that were involved with that were driving me nuts, I'm great friends with. So it's like, I don't know, it's just like, things can be frustrating in the past, and I don't really hang on to that going forward, you know?
Yeah, I guess so. On Gersman's podcast, you're like, I kept pitching a Game Informer riding the roller coaster with the 3DSs, and everyone kept saying no. I'm like, I don't remember that being pitched once to me.
No, not to you, I don't think. It might have been before you were there, because I was pitching it as the Mall of America.
Oh,
doing
interesting.
It as the Mall of America on a roller
Okay.
coaster. And that was the thing with, like, I remember at the time, especially that was probably pretty early, and Andy just being like, what? Why would we do that? And I do remember, like, on my way out, I knew I was going to Giant Bomb, and we were in an issue meeting, and we were all talking about, like, okay, we're going to E3 soon, a few months. We got to, like, look at what worked last year and lean on that. And I remember, like, I knew I was on the way out, so I didn't really care.
Yeah.
I had looked it up before, and I was like, well, the thing we did that got the most traffic last year was my fart video with Peter Molyneux. And I remember people just being like, well, yeah, but, like, real stuff, real stuff. And so that's why I was just very
Stuff that doesn't make an impact, Dan.
Yeah, right. Stuff that doesn't matter to anyone, but people like watching.
So this is that little bit of, like, hey, it's all good. Game Informer was a beautiful thing
God,
when we were there.
changed my
Super
life.
thankful for
Yeah,
it.
that's why I
Absolutely.
moved back here, yeah.
But I still have those little moments too of, like, you know, we did a series called Memory Card Archaeology of just, like, digging through saves that we got at used game stores and stuff, and averaging those episodes did like 130,000 views. And I was like, why aren't we doing more of this? And it's like, that was just that weird optics. Like, are we looking at the numbers? Are we paying attention at all?
Wasn't it you that kept pitching a Game Informal? And it was a thing where it was
pitching.
us-
We did 3 or 4 episodes.
right, and
of
people
it.
liked it, right? And then it got like killed.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it was like, you know, this is why I'm sympathetic towards Jan a lot. Is like, yeah, a lot of great ideas, but, you know, doing this for 15 years now, so much of it comes down to, like, what can you do consistently?
Sure.
Anybody can just take an idea and make it, but like, you need to make sure that it's doable bandwidth-wise within your production.
Of course, yeah.
schedule. And I think about Giant Bomb a lot. Like, even on the, you know, first Bombcast coming back, it's like, now we can do anything. And there's a part of me where it's like, you guys, you were pitching silly ideas throughout the last 3 years of Giant Bomb, and it's like, I don't think the bandwidth is creativity or fandom saying, F you, don't do this. It's just like,
No.
everyone's busy, and Jan needs to be the throttle for how much you can pump out.
More than that, because like when you're under a big corporation, there are just a lot of meetings and stuff that aren't directly about the content.
Like, how many meetings would you have a week?
Oh God, near the end there, I mean, like not content. Like what type of meetings are you talking about?
I don't know. I guess just meetings in general.
I mean, there would probably be 5 or 6 meetings a week that it's just like, oh man, I just don't want to be in this thing. This doesn't like, I want to be in things where we're like brainstorming and thinking of like creative stuff. And I love those kind of meetings.
Yeah.
It's just the ones where it's like, you know, again, not going to dive deep into all the like, you know, fandom stuff or whatever, but you saw like the Power Block stuff they were doing.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I don't know what the future of that is or anything, but like, obviously that was a big push to like a very ambitious thing we're going to do, and we're going to work with GameSpot a lot. So just the amount of like, you know, pitch meetings, which are fun, but also just a bunch of logistical stuff. And I don't even have the like someone like a Jan has to deal with way more of that stuff, because it's like he's got to be babysitting every one of those streams, you know, like there were people that had it a lot worse than I did, certainly, with that stuff in terms of just like logistics and everything. And so there's still going to be bottlenecks, but also I made sure to ask Jan when we were starting this new thing that like, hey, I just want to make sure that like, even with all the stuff we're talking about, even all the content we're planning and everything, even if we do all of it, is this going to be easier than where you were at the end, you know, under Fandom? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Because like,
really, make sure that easier isn't 20% less on fire.
I mean, by easier, I mean just like, he is not required to be babysitting a stream all day.
Right.
And if he goes up to, you know, use the bathroom or have a sandwich, we can't cut to a different scene, you know, that type of stuff. So, he assured us that like, this is going to be much easier on him.
Good.
Yeah.
And let the record show, Jan, this guy can edit videos. Make him edit videos.
I'll do it.
He's the second best editor probably at Giant Bomb currently. Make him do it.
I don't know. Yeah, well, we got to get Adobe license again. I might have to steal a password from you.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
Yeah. Turns out when you leave a corporation, there's a whole lot of things that go away.
Oh, man. I was thinking of that with like your SGF planning, where you're saying you want to do stuff where it's like, hey, you know, Fandom, it seemed like, did a lot for helping ease that process. And so I am fascinated to see how that goes.
Fandom was a huge help with that, and we had people like Emma that were just absolutely killing it. Like, she was just a Swiss Army knife as far as all of that stuff goes. But yeah, that's the thing. So when it's like 5 people, it is just a lot of like, like right now, Backlar is wearing a million hats. And but my hope is that at a certain point here, once kind of the business is up and running, that it's just kind of like, all right, well, there's always going to be like, okay, can we sell this event? Can we sell this thing? Or, sponsorships and stuff. But it's not this like billion things that, have to be set up and bank accounts and all that. Like, hopefully it's front loaded,
I think the scariest thing I can tell you is like, MinnMax has been around for 5.5 years. I feel like it's been 5.5 years of like, eventually we're going to get in that groove. Sure. That's going to be really smooth and easy for everybody. And hopefully with like our weird structure, it's like, I don't think other folks are feeling pockets of stress, but there are times for me where it's like pedal to the metal, Yeah. And it's like, I still feel that idea of like, eventually it'll settle down and it'll be like, okay, there's going to be this beautiful gap of 2 days in my schedule where I can make some really cool thing happen. And like, I think we're still doing enough cool things, but it is constantly like a weird, I don't know, frantic scramble that somehow never slows down as much as you think it's going to.
I feel like that's a common refrain with us when we hang out, is just like a lot of, like, okay, well, I have all this stuff. I've had this project, like you've had projects you've been sitting on forever.
Oh my gosh.
Done.
Yeah.
But it's like, I also think guys like you and me like to have a certain amount of control over this stuff. Like the idea of like, oh, you have all this raw footage of something and to give it into someone's hands and just like not be there for the cut and stuff like that.
Like when have you experienced that?
Thinking about you. No, but if I think about that, like when I am putting something together, whether it's like if I have an idea for a bit at a PAX panel or the way I want a video to go, or even just like, like I was the one who came up with the, this tweet at the same time, the vague language and stuff. Like that type of thing, I like to have control over, like kind of the hype, almost like the wrestling promotion factor type thing.
I'm kind of the idea for the tweet man. Pay up.
20%, please. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
No, but I've made, I guess back, I'm not making like short films or comedy sketches anymore.
But you could.
But, like, I could.
Yeah.
And it was fun. I like doing it. But like, I would always want to be there to do every single little cut and every little decision on it,
Yeah. I hopefully I've gotten better with that. I don't think I'm a dick about it, but there are just the times where we've kind of like, Charles Hart was helping us out for a while before he was full-time at Game Informer now and stuff. And like he edited like a GDC travelogue and did an awesome job. Like he found so many funny things that I wouldn't think of, like, what was it? It was like, in like 9 hours of footage, he cut together every time Haley said, cool, or something like that. And he just made like a montage of it, just like as a joke, and posted it in Slack. I'm like, this is a social clip. I would never think of doing this. It's so funny.
Did he post it?
Yeah, I did, yeah. But there's also, it's like, there were like 2 hugs in that footage that he didn't include. And I was like, you gotta include every hug during a travel. It's like a weird, like very specific thing. Like I think it's so sweet of like, I think it was like Janet and Snowbike Mike seeing each other. I'm like, that's a sweet moment. Like we got,
so that's that level. Doing that for like E3 show floor tours. I remember you including a lot of hugs. You're a big hug guy.
Welcome to that show floor tour of E3 2017. It's just 6 hugs and then fade to black. Sponsored by Sprint Mobile.
Yes. See, I'm a firm handshake guy. I would do like the firm handshake montage.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Confident, firm handshakes.
Unblinking.
All around.
Yeah.
No, but I am fascinated to see, and you've talked a lot about it, about just like how much more energized you're feeling and everybody on the team's feeling. And like, I'm curious to see what that looks like. There is that magic of, if we push hard, more comes back directly.
Yeah, especially like the way I work is just like if there is a direct incentive, like, okay, this thing blows up, or if this idea takes off or something, that's going to bring in X amount of subscribers or something like that, like additional revenue streams or whatever. That just triggers something in my brain like crazy.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I don't think I ever coasted, but I think it's like when you are getting the same paycheck every week, there is not that fire just under you at all times, like go. It's easier to just be like, okay, we'll do Dump Truck this week. Okay, I'll be on Bombcast. Like now I'm feeling that, like I want to be making stuff all the time.
Are you already obsessive with the numbers? Do you have like
oh my God,
a back end site where you can see every sub and everything?
I refresh. Like I know by now that the subscriber thing doesn't refresh. It's like every couple hours or something. I'll still check 4 times in an hour. And just I'll have my ideas like, okay, I want it to be here. And it's like I'll refresh me. Okay, maybe by this day we can hit this, and maybe we should do something to boost this. And
have you seen what's boosting? Can you time it to like Gerstmann podcast went live?
It's
bada bing.
Too early, I think, because I think we're still in that just kind of like honeymoon period of like we just announced basically. People are just like, hearing the Bombcast from a couple days ago and they aren't on social, so they didn't see the pack stuff, like, so it's still like every day it's going up quite a bit in a way that I'm very excited about.
I was so thankful. It was so smart. This is in the weeds, I know, but on the last Bombcast, when I think it was Grubb primarily, who was like, hey, we should like fill people in case that PAX panel jumped in your feed and you didn't know what it was and you skipped it, like we should tell you what happened. Like,
sure.
Super smart, because it's just this basic assumption, like everybody understands exactly what happened, but it's like there's so many people, it's like, I don't know, listen to the Bombcast for 15 years, I don't know, I guess it was not there for a week, I don't know, the PAX panel, easy skip.
Right.
Audio's probably going to suck.
You're right,
like,
yeah.
Yep,
right.
It's I totally got that.
Yep.
So, I know you don't want to get into specific numbers. Would you ever be public with the sub numbers, by the way?
We haven't really talked about that, but I don't know, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about that. Like I look at I always have like, I've thought about the idea of like what would independent look like for many years now. So anytime I have a friend like Miller or you or Nextlander or Gersman
Matt
or
Miller?
like, what's that? Matt Miller. Yeah. He's OnlyFans, but I'm always checking, just like, okay, well, whose line's going up? Whose is going down? Okay, what do they do? Like I've been analyzing that stuff for a long time now. So I do love seeing that. And some of them cut off the like, it used to be like you're one of the few I see that like you can see the number of paid subscribers and you can see the total amount, which is fascinating.
There's a site called Graphtreon.
Yes, Graphtreon. So I've got all those bookmarked and everything. So everybody I know that's got a Patreon, I've got it all. Graphtreon. I got a whole folder.
And you've been studying it closely for the last
probably
year in
since
particular, right?
I don't know if it was around when Miller broke off, but like almost 10 years at least.
Right.
And that's why it's like, that's part of the reason that like, I don't like necessarily listen to a lot of games podcasts or anything. Or any.
Yeah.
But like,
Zero.
But like, that's the thing. It's like I follow everyone and I can see, everyone's going to clip their best stuff and I have a sense of what they're making. And I talk to you all the time about this stuff. And so like, and I see your graph.
Tell me who Second Wind is an example of how that
they
conversation...
broke off. They're one of the remap aftermath Second Winds. They're
and everybody knows they came from?
Second Wind came from The Escapist.
Damn it! Good job. I just told you that last week for the record.
I don't remember anything. Okay. That was just knowledge. So yeah, where was I going with that? Some people listen, some people don't. I don't have a strong enough opinion about that right now.
Okay, numbers exceeding expectations. I'm sure you had lines of like, we hit this number, this happens, we hit this number, we're set.
I would say
where are you at in
24 hours in, we were very, very happy, and every day since has been very positive.
Okay.
Yes.
Like, do you have that number of sustainable for your salaries? Or do you have set salaries?
You can
or what
do
is
the
it
math, like you can see just like on the subscribers, like, okay, this is how much estimated revenue for the year is coming in. You can divide that by 5. But then it's also like, we haven't even really started yet with like, super chats and, we don't, we're just about to start control of the YouTube and be able to do like, for people that just want to watch on YouTube, they can subscribe there and get no ads there, or, Twitch subscriptions, or, we just did because like, here's the thing, we launched, and because of just technical stuff on the back end, we weren't able to like really tweak much in terms of how many tiers and stuff we had. So all we were able to do was the $10 a month or the $100 a year support. Right. And we had so many people be like, I want to support you more. And people that like, some people just did that by buying like a bunch of stuff from the merch store, things like that. And then some people are like, do you have like a higher thing? Do you have like, just give us some way to give you money. So today it was like the Ko-fi or Ko-fi or link, like that went up today, where it's just like tip jar basically. So it's like ko-fi.com/giantbomb. And we launched it during the voicemail dump truck today. And sure enough, there's just a bunch of people that want to support this thing. It's like there is a flashpoint right now of people wanting to support independent games media. And I mean, that has been the case. It's been growing for a long time. But I think a couple weeks ago, the same fucking day was us and Polygon that news came out.
Yeah.
And so I think more than ever, people are just like, all right, if we want to keep seeing the stuff that we like, you just got to support it directly.
Yeah. Here's my big picture question when thinking about everything that's happened. And it's the volume of Giant Bomb love is overwhelming in a good way, is how I'd phrase it. Like, unbelievable.
Always has been.
And you've never said this to me, to be clear, and take this in the spirit in which it's intended here.
Sure.
But I've been following Giant Bomb for years and years and years and years and years, right? Probably 15 years consistently, I'd say, right? And over like the last couple years, I feel like the numbers have been dropping. And I have this general feeling of like, where the f*** were you guys over the last 3 years? And so here's again, this is all leading to the big question of like, do you worry about those people, because you have a lot of support right now and a lot of oomph, but do you worry that's from people who like, I love Giant Bomb 12 years ago and I'm going to be disappointed if it doesn't feel like that? Because I feel like it's safer if it's like, hey, this is keeping that crew from the last couple of years consistent, which is great.
Sure.
But because I know in the past it's been, obviously everyone would be like, where's Vinny? Where's Jeff in the comments, which is totally understandable, but it's kind of frustrating. Like, no, we're kind of a new generation. So do you worry about that groundswell of support being largely people who are saying, bring back 2011?
No, because I think if that was all it was, I don't think, look, if people want to watch Jeff Gerstmann and support Jeff Gerstmann, please go to Jeff Gerstmann's Patreon and support him. He's doing great stuff over there.
Right.
I'm so jealous of the NES ranking thing. So it's like, I can't imagine if someone's just like a legacy, or there are those people that are like, oh, I stopped watching, once the Nextlander guys left, or once Jeff left, or whatever. And we see that in the comments all the time, obviously.
Yep. That's where you lost your hair. You pulled it all out in frustration from those comments. Yeah.
Yes. I don't think those people would suddenly come back and be like, okay, I'll give money to the place that still doesn't have those guys back,
But you admit there is, based on the viewership of Giant Bomb over the last year, with all respect.
Yeah.
There's the groundswell of love that does not align with the viewership over the last couple of years, right? So is it just, it's just the spirit, the energy, the tone of Giant Bomb that was set from the founding, that's what people are connecting to again.
The idea of that spirit staying alive?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe, but the thing is, I don't think it's easy to pin it on any one thing. I mean, I could sit here and complain about we've had these different owners and we didn't get the social support, we didn't get promotion, we didn't get the sales on our site. But you could blame it on Nextlander not being there or Gerstmann not being there or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think the site...
It's just funny to refer to those guys. Nextlander, the Borg.
Yeah. Vinny, Brad, and Alex. Yes, I love them all. Yes.
But if you had to rank them.
Alex is last.
Oh, Jesus.
No, I love Alex.
But he would be last, to be clear.
No, all equal in my eyes.
Okay, cool.
So I am always of a maybe naive opinion that if you just make really good stuff, it's people are going to find it and they're going to feel strongly about it and tell their friends and stuff. And
but don't you think that that's what you've been doing over the last 3 years?
But I do think that when I first came back in June 2022, I can totally understand people just being like, oh man, okay, we just four of the original, I know Alex wasn't original, but pretty early on, four pillars of this website all were gone just shortly before I came on board. Of course, that's going to have a huge hit on numbers and fan sentiment, and people are going to split off and go in different places and support their personalities wherever. But I don't think it's an immediate thing where, no matter how good we were or anything back then, that I don't think we would have retained everyone. I think you kind of have to recalibrate. And at that point, I had never... I think I met Jeff Grubb in person one time on stage at a Greg Miller Smash Brothers competition thing. So it's the hardest thing with a podcast is... and I argue this all the time at WWE, you can't just put famous person here and famous person here on a podcast and suddenly it's a success. The most important thing is the rapport, know? And we were disparate. I either knew personally or knew of all the people that I knew Giant Bomb,
Yeah, and you knew that Gerstmann in particular really respected Grubb, and that must have had some impact.
Oh, and I'd seen stuff Grubb. I'd followed Grubb for a long time, and always liked the vibe of this guy, but I didn't really know him, and so it just takes time for things I think I put Blight Club up there with. If you haven't seen Blight Club, it's just we play and beat the worst games of all time.
I love that you're doing Rascal right now, by the way.
That is, and I've been crediting you for.
I appreciate that.
Yes, because you and Tim, Jersey Devil, and Rascal, we went to your place 13 years ago and played it. We probably played 10 minutes of Rascal and said, F this.
It felt like longer.
Yeah.
But that is number one worst game I've ever played in my life, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Has to be.
Well, Mike's killing it. He's doing great. Tune in. He looks very cool.
Makes it look easy.
So the thing is, it's it does take time where it's look at Blight Club. That was three guys, Grubb and Minotti knew each other a long time, but I met Mike Minotti months after I came back to Giant Bomb.
Right.
And then suddenly you kind of start feeling this out, and pretty quickly we kind of hit it off and comedically, and it's oh, okay, you become really good friends and everything, and that rapport becomes natural, and you build something. It's not an immediate thing. And really, we're talking about summer 2022, less than 3 years ago. It takes some time to kind of get that, but again, naive maybe, I believe in the content.
So as you were cementing your relationship with that crew, then there's also the tail end of people being this isn't Vinny, see ya, and so it eventually stabilized to rock solid, core, new generation.
I think you did start seeing, in the last 6 months, maybe 6 months to a year, a lot of people come around on the Reddit and things like that and being oh, I thought this was dead. It's a Ship of Theseus situation. It's not really Giant Bomb anymore, but man, these guys really found their groove, and so it's I see that more and more. It used to be overwhelmingly hey, they seem like good people and everything, but it's not Giant Bomb. Now the majority is kind of oh man, especially like when it seemed like everything was going down. Seeing the amount of like mourning for this, being like, oh my God, they were really hitting their stride. They were making great stuff, So it's like, I do think we were kind of on that way. But also, when things are decided on as far as like how we can make content and, the stuff like, okay, well now we have to really be all hands on deck with this Power Block thing. And we're kind of putting the two brands, it complicates.
Did you want to do the Power Block personally?
I think I understood the reason they wanted to go in that direction.
Which was?
I think it was to make it basically this always-on thing that you could, it's always about selling blocks of advertising things and being like, well, you could own this week of the Power Block. It's we're on the air for 5 hours every day of the week. But I mean, I don't think that's a necessarily bad idea or anything. It's just it did require a lot of shifting of like both how we and GameSpot worked together and. It was difficult, and also there just weren't enough people. Again, like especially on the producer side of things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, I mean, how many times throughout the last 3 years was Fandom saying no to an idea?
They weren't.
That's nice to hear.
Yeah, that's the thing is, we were doing silly, fun, stupid stuff.
No doubt about it.
And they were not hovering over the situation and saying like, oh, we can't do that or anything.
Yeah.
I can't fault them for that.
Yeah. The Fandom thing, big picture wise, I mean, it is. I can't think of another example on Earth where a company has been this generous. I know you probably don't want to get into specifics for how much the site was sold for, more or less than most people think.
I'm not touching any of that.
You devil.
It's not my place to like. I'm just not
my place.
I'm not doing that. No.
Okay, all right.
No.
Here's what I think of. You're a bit of a hoarder, if I may. Collector. Collector is a completely different thing.
Hoarder.
I'm looking around this room. It is a shrine to his youth.
Okay, yeah, youth. Yeah, I guess. Look at Astrobot.
You know what? I take it back.
All right.
This is a cool man cave for adult dying men.
Oh.
But it's that idea of, if you were in Fandom's shoes, can you ever imagine being like, go ahead and take this?
Take this?
If you were in Fandom's shoes.
Again, I was not in the conversations. I was not in
okay. I'm trying to get that idea of like, it is a wild thing. I'm not trying to, whip up everybody into a frenzy of kissing Fandom's ass, but it is confusingly rare for them to sell a site like this.
Yeah.
And they seem happy?
I don't talk to them. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. Look, I did my whole exit stuff. I had a meeting with HR today about my Cobra health benefits and stuff like that.
Today, really?
They've been delightful. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
Shout out Carrie from HR. She was great. Like,
is there one person, and I promise I'm not paid to say this, is there one person that people should thank from Fandom in particular? Should they find somebody on Blue Sky or Twitter or something? Like,
there were definitely people there that were in our corner and helped us out throughout this process and everything, and understood the frustrations for sure. I don't want to say specific names of people that people haven't heard of, and then have them find them on Blue Sky or whatever.
And thank them?
It's still weird. I'm just not like, look, there were people that understood, even as I was vocally not happy about things and everything, people that were just understanding about the situation, and I do think it went to its best possible conclusion. For both parties.
I completely agree.
Yes.
I completely agree.
So obviously there was a misalignment with like how each brand saw each other, how Fandom saw Fandom and how Giant Bomb saw Giant Bomb, and that clashed for sure near the end.
Yeah.
And now we don't have to worry about that, neither company,
Yeah. How scared were you at peak fear over the last month?
I don't think I ever had fear about it.
No part of it. Where am I going to end up?
I've always, like, in any worst case scenario, if I got fired tomorrow or something like that, I don't know. I've always just had a lot of. I've never been fired, and I've never been.
That can't be right.
I've never been. Name it.
Name it.
when have I ever been fired? Dating
me.
back to 14 at McDonald's, I've never been fired. And yeah, I just have a lot of faith in myself that, like, if that happened, I don't know. I got people in wrestling. I got people in games I could talk to. Like,
yeah.
I don't know. I'm just, fear, I don't think, played into it.
Yeah. I mean, you were thinking about independence for a while, about what would it look like if I branched off or we branched off.
That has always been something, anytime, whether it was a Miller or a Danny O'Dwyer Or, you know, like I thought about it a lot when Drew Scanlon broke off.
Yeah, totally.
Because he broke off and did Cloth Map, and you know, like obviously the sentiment with Giant Bomb fans, they're very passionate about like every personality that's ever been on Giant Bomb.
Mm-hmm.
And Drew was on the Bombcast every week and everything, and obviously Metal Gear Scanlon things, but he wasn't on as much content as like, you know, like a me or an Alex or a Vinny or something like that.
Sure.
You know, he was on plenty, but like he broke off, and I saw like as a solo creator how much he was making, and I was like, holy shit. Like that really got my head turning, like, and I knew I would be like promoting like crazy and really pushing hard for stuff. And I definitely had some moments of thinking like, okay, well, let's crunch some numbers here. How could I be doing as a solo, you know, and then also thinking like, okay, what about me? Like Fire Escape for a long time before it launched. I was talking to you about this. You were still a Game Informer. I mean, there was always like me, Mike, and Mary were always talking about it, but there were times that we would ask you or Vinny, like, oh, is this something you would ever consider, you know? And it wound up, because initially, I think, like, probably...
Wait, you're asking me to join Fire Escape?
I mean, early talks of, like, would you ever consider... I'm talking, like, 2016, 2017.
Okay,
I remember there was, like, a Game of the Year we were all in San Francisco, and I remember, like, you know, asking Vinny about it at a bar and stuff like that, and just be like, oh, you know, what would this look like? How many people could we support? What would the numbers be like? And, you know, it was me and Mike started thinking about it at our buddy Dave's wedding.
Right. Next to the Fire Escape.
Next to a Fire Escape. I was like, oh, we'll just call it that for now, blah, blah, blah. Got Mary in, and then I was talking to people about it and trying to see how many we could do. I was talking to potential, like, investors and stuff. Me and Mike had some meetings in New York with people that, like, wanted to, actually someone that you put me in touch with. Remember that? Yeah, we had a meeting with
Whereas, like, an early, like, potential investor in MinnMax.
Yeah, it was someone that was, like, being like, we want to, like, pay for everything, and I've got numerous different places you could use as a studio.
I've got a 747 you can use.
It was that type of thing.
It was that type of thing. It was to the point where, for MinnMax at least when we started out, that was his pitch. And then he's like, all right, just get your lawyer on the phone. We'll lock it down. And then I was like, I don't want to have a lawyer. Yeah, so I was like, I don't need your money, actually. It's fine.
Yeah, we wound up not doing that.
Yeah.
But, so, I mean, there were different forms it was going to take. You know, there was a point where it's like, okay, what if I left Giant Bomb, we did this full-time, went full kind of funny with it, you know?
Yeah.
But that never really came to be, and I think it worked best as a side thing, especially when I wasn't working full-time in games, and I wanted to have, you know, a gaming outlet, you know, and that's when I started Fire Escape. But
yeah. So you've always been toying with the idea, and then
always.
But I think, you know, what we were talking about not too long ago was that idea of like, I think it was just even last week, right? Of just like, what would it be like if you just put out a post on Blue Sky or whatever and said, I'm looking for a job. What job could you land in the industry right now?
Well, and that's why.
And you were the camp of like, oh, Hanson, you'd find a job immediately. And I was like, I don't think I would.
You've just met so many people over like high-ranking people in the industry that love your work. Like I would have to like maybe
I don't think
maybe you've got this Midwest modesty thing going on here, but like it's like I think you are tremendously respected by developers, media, like everyone.
Is that why they don't return my emails? Is that why you're trying to say? Hey,
I don't know. Again, naive optimist maybe, but like, I think you would do just fine.
Okay, but it was that idea of if you did it right, like where could you end up in the industry? What would your options be if you were leaving Giant Bomb? Was something you were considering for a while? Yeah,
but I mean, in recent years, I guess, specifically in like the last year, there is that realistic part of me that's just like, things are in a bad spot right now. Right. And you look at like how many ex-media people are out there now, and all these sites are shutting down. Like they're constantly shutting down, and there are a ton of very, very talented writers and on-screen personalities and podcast producers and all that. And how many places can really sustain that full time? And that's why you see tons of people going to consultancies, things like that. And so I just didn't. I assumed it might be harder than in my kind of naive brain used to think it would be.
Yeah. Yeah. So
like 10 years ago, if I said, hey, I'm leaving Giant Bomb or something,
right.
I think I would have been fine. Now, I don't know. I'd wind up finding something, but I don't know if it'd be ideal.
Right, and this is ideal for you.
I mean, I'm with my friends that I love making stuff with, pretty much untethered to, like, obviously...
reality.
Well, I mean, there's got to be business realities here, too. Like, it's so early, we have no idea what... Like, I'm expecting to take a huge pay cut, Like, I went into this assuming this was going to be a huge pay cut.
Based on where subs are at right now, do you think that's going to be happening?
I know, like, again, it's subs plus a billion other revenue sources. I just do not have... Like, I don't think I'm going to struggle to pay the mortgage by any means.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with taking a big pay cut because it's just going to mean hey, success is purely on us. Success or failure is on us five guys.
Right. Do you think you're going to have set salaries?
That's, again, it's so early and...
Yeah, so just make the call right now.
I'm not going to make the call for 5 people publicly on a podcast.
You coward. Do you think this entire Giant Bomb sale would have happened without your Twitch stream that you took down immediately? Be honest.
Yes.
Would have?
Yes.
The ball was rolling this direction.
I'm confident that was not no.
Would you ever put episode 888 back up in the podcast feed, or you feel like it's confusing? It's kind of better as a pirate thing?
I don't think it matters. It's just...
You get the idea?
I don't think we need to.
Okay, interesting.
I guess we technically could, but that's not a thing that's even come up.
Yeah. Beastcast feed.
Mm-hmm.
The podcast feed.
Yeah.
You have those numbers, right? You have that feed?
Yeah. We have all of it. Every legacy podcast and everything.
There has to be a gigantic number of subs to that feed. Would you ever... Respecting the history of that, if you ever launched a new podcast at Giant Bomb, would you ever retrofit that feed? Because it's so...
That's a really interesting idea.
Probably dozens of thousands.
Can we bring you on as a consultant?
Yes. I have so many things to scream at you guys about, and not just bug you about thumbnails.
Well, drive over here and yell at me.
All right. Hey, I'll do
film
that.
it.
All right, that sounds good. Let's see. How do you plan on finding a new audience? Or follow up: do you need a new audience?
Yes. I think the backbone of this thing to start is definitely that legacy audience of people that love Giant Bomb and want to see it live. And they have been there through a lot with the site. A lot of them have been there from, the early 2010s or before. And there's been a lot of ups and major downs with the website. And yes, a ton of them are a huge, huge part of this. But I do think, I think we do need to find a new audience, and I think we're starting to. I think things like Blight Club, kind of finding a new audience. I'm starting to see more and more people being like, oh, I started watching with Blight Club and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But it's not that same pressure of, under a corporation where it's oh, you have to... Was it you that said, Game Informer's people said, you have to have 500,000 subs before
That's what associate publisher Rob Borm told me. That we couldn't,
Rob said that?
We couldn't run ads on the Game Informer show until we had 500,000 downloads per episode.
That's the thing. But that's just the whole thing about every corporation. It's just that infinite growth and, just crazy.
Yeah, I think it was more so just he was used to selling ads for a magazine. So he's you want me to sell 40,000?
Yeah, but
what is that number?
I'm saying broader. I'm saying in companies in general and shareholders and trying to just infinite growth type stuff, that unsustainable growth.
Giant Bomb a month ago, if you cut out all executive middlemen, if it was, let's just say, and I understand this is cutting out more people than it should, but if it was just the core 5, would it have been financially stable?
What do you mean?
Could you have paid your salaries based on how much income is coming to Giant Bomb based on Giant Bomb a month ago with subs and everything?
I guess we're about to find out, right? Isn't that
no,
the whole deal now?
No, it's not, because you've had a huge boost of everybody being I love Giant Bomb.
Well, then I guess the answer is I don't care because we don't have to worry about that now. I'll take the boost.
All right, never mind. I guess that's fine.
Keep that boost going.
Okay, so to find a new audience, Blight Club's number one plan? You think there's going to be more stuff?
It's interesting because there is the legacy stuff you want to make sure you keep going. Obviously the Bombcast is going to keep going. We do stuff like UPF. And Dump Truck is a more on the newer side thing, but we're going to keep that going. So really the Bombcast is the legacy thing. But then there's also we're starting to do quick looks again. That's something that people really like throughout history. So we're going to do that. But there are things like Grubb's News Show, a daily news show. That is a new era Giant Bomb thing, is Grubb doing the news like that. Blight Club is a totally new thing. Yeah. We definitely have lots of recurring ideas and stuff that we want to do that we've kind of messed around with stuff in the past where it's we'll do a 4-player competitive a game about digging a hole, and whoever wins gets to pick a punishment game for the other 3 to play through.
And you think it's getting out of your orbit?
What do you mean?
To find a new audience?
Out of our orbit? I'm saying it's new content that's not we're not just leaning on we're bringing back TNT and UPF and every single old Giant Bomb thing,
Right.
Yeah.
And you think that new content just has a chance of finding a new audience?
Yeah, again, it's just faith in, I think we're all funny, intelligent guys that know games well and we understand what our audience wants. And I think an important thing is listening to them. And because in the past, when you're working for a corporation, it's serving, serving sales, it's serving brands, it's serving an algorithm. And it's now it is very directly the fans. So we do really have to listen to that.
And here's where I'd push back a little bit,
Yeah.
respectfully, is I mean, how many meetings in the last 3 years were you talking about the algorithm? I mean, what content did you create because Fandom was saying this is going to be good for the algorithm? I didn't see it.
I mean, there are definitely meetings and stuff where it's like,
I'm sure they said the word algorithm at some point.
No, there's stuff where it's like we need to figure out how to, get more stuff on social and like, this type of thing is big on social right now and things like that. Like, again, no one was like forcing us and saying, you need to cancel Blight Club and, make something that's, whatever, hot on TikTok or whatever. But, yeah.
It's so weird because it's like, I think you guys would be financially set if you were catering to that older school. I mean, the size of the Giant Bomb overall community, if you factor in, which I think you've seen it over the last week, of like the amount of people who have been touched by Giant Bomb throughout its run.
Oh, yeah.
I think you guys would be set just catering to them. So it's an interesting path of like, I understand you want to continue stuff you invented in the last couple of years, and I think that's a great idea. But it's a weird idea because it's like, hey, you know what? If 1 week we have Jason and Drew on, it'll be a lightning rod for so many people. It's like
I love that.
And you can always pull from it. Really?
Yes.
Can we get that rolling? Is that enough?
Door is open.
Okay.
People can reach out to me or anyone at Giant Bomb and like
Can you set up like a Parent Trap situation where it's like Nick Slander and Gersman coming on the same podcast together?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Set that up. I think I don't like the idea of all of these independent games media, outlets being in competition, even though technically
I understand that.
Yeah, I want to work with everyone.
I get that, but it's still that idea of you'd be set catering to Giant Bomb's history. So what do you want to do to cater to a new audience? That's the question.
Just as it makes sense, introduce new features and things like that. Like things that like, I'm not saying let's introduce a new thing that's like, I think all these people who've never heard of Giant Bomb are going to flock to it if we do this trending thing or whatever. Yeah. I think there's just that spirit of Giant Bomb that if we can carry that into new ideas as well, I think it will satisfy the longtime fans of Giant Bomb.
Yeah.
And also, if the right idea or the right group of people and stuff, people might be like, check, more things like Blight Club, I think, where it's like we just had a good idea.
So it's not that different from the last 3 years of Giant Bomb. I know there were shakeups and tumultuous periods and stuff, but let's say the last year of Giant Bomb. You think just that model is going to bring in enough new folks? I
think it's going to be freeing not having to do so many meetings and so many things that are not directly tied to like...
Energy-wise or bandwidth-wise?
Both.
And don't say both. That's easy.
No, honestly, it's both. I mean, because it's like, I don't know, when so much of your day is taken up by like these meetings and stuff that don't really have anything to do with the content.
Yeah.
You don't find the time as much to like sit down and just be like, hey, let's hash out this idea. Let's like, really work on this new feature or something. So,
right.
Which, was really nice when I was there the first time around, both at West and East, because like basically my whole thing was like come up with premium series, to boost premium.
The best job possible.
When more stuff was gated behind premium. Right. And that's when I was doing, right out of the gate, right when I started, Metal Gear Scaling, Mario Party, Demo Derby, those were all like right out of the gate. And then, Steal My Sunshine, Burgle My Bananas, like all these, like I know I'm naming all these things, like I'm assuming people know what they are, but Giant Bomb fans
Trust me, if you say Burgle My Bananas, people understand exactly what that show was.
I mean, it's what it sounds like, yes. We sent a Nintendo 64 to Antarctica.
Fill in the gaps, people. Yes. Don't be naive.
But like, yes, I love the idea of more of my day feeling more like that, where I'm just trying to think of fun ideas, and then and I know I've got 4 other guys that are really game for some goofy stuff.
Yeah. Respecting Jan's workload. I don't think there's a big.
You can ask Jan. I check with him all the time. Like, yes,
it was. I appreciated that Jan on the Bombcast. I think it was at the panel. I forget, but he made some reference to like, we should send Dan some other place. And I've enjoyed Giant Bomb over the last couple of years. I do think the best thing you guys did over the last 3 years was you going to Fargo.
The Fargo thing.
That was, because we do a lot of the travelogue stuff with MinnMax. Like that is, if I might kiss your ass a little bit, you can look away, please. But like it's a weird thing emotionally to do, to record yourself solo on a trip. Like, hey, I'm gonna make a joke. Let me hit record on this. Like, it is uncomfortable for me at least. But like, you did such a good job with that video. It is your greatest
hard. I was worried about like I brought mics and stuff and I couldn't get them working, and it's like I'm trying to like set up a tripod at a bar and all this.
Just use your phone and make it shaky, and you know what?
Yeah, it turns out it's
fine.
It can just be really lo-fi.
Don't let the audio suck too bad, and it's fine.
But that's the type of stuff I'm talking about. Like something like that Fargo thing, which I think if you're looking for it on YouTube, it's like Catch Me If You Dan, Fargo.
Of course.
that's not exactly like something that happened in Giant Bomb before. And like I want to do like that was an idea that came about. That's a beautiful example of like it was on voicemail dump truck, and it was just like I forgot how it come up. Like, oh, would you just get on a plane not knowing where you're going? I was like, yeah, I would.
That's what you need to do.
Prove it. And then I did. Like the next day, I think I got on a plane.
I think that's
didn't
the
know where
best
I was going.
way you can use your independence as an outlet, and like that. You know, not to make it all about MinnMax. This is a MinnMax video, I guess, technically. But like, that's the best thing is we have New Show Plus. We've talked about it before in reviews and on Firescape and stuff, right? But like, it's every time somebody makes a stupid reference to like, hey, wouldn't it be funny if we did this? It's like, put it on the list.
Yeah.
Put it in the poll next week.
Let's
if
do
the
it.
Patreon supporters vote for it, we will find a way to make a show called Pop Leo the 14th happen, where Leo reviews Pop's blind test.
That was really good.
Amazing.
No, I love that.
But it's like, hey, we'll pitch 4 dumb ideas every week. If you vote for it, we'll make it happen, right? And so I think it's the idea of like, it feels like playing improv with your own outlet, right? Of like, you know what? We said that. We got to do it now.
It's like, yeah, like this is not going to happen because we got pre-orders and stuff. But like when the Switch was like, when it was up in the air where it's like, other countries were getting their pre-orders and we hadn't yet.
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was on content or on a meeting or something where me and Grubb were just like, let's do a thing where it's like, why don't like you and Mike drive up to Minnesota here and then we will just stream and do a video travelogue thing of us driving to the Canadian border and trying to come back with Switch
Sounds
2s.
great. Do you know how far away Canada is?
4 hours?
It's more than that.
Is it?
I think it's like 6 hours.
But still,
it sounds like a great idea, but it still is a great idea.
I mean, Gershom and I streamed an entire drive from San Francisco to LA for E3, you know, like that type of thing, where it's, you know, like, make things like that happen.
Yep, totally. By the way, I would do a tour of Winnipeg. I've never really been to Winnipeg, but it's like the closest big Canadian city.
What's in Winnipeg? Other than Chris Jericho?
Do I need to say?
Yes.
we have some friends who are like, honestly, we traveled to Winnipeg. You guys have got to go to Winnipeg.
I like
and I had that follow-up. I love Canada.
I just got back from Montreal. It's great.
Montreal's the best.
Montreal's awesome.
It's so good. Quebec, I loved more than Montreal. So it felt like an extreme version of Montreal. Everything I loved about Montreal is like even better in Quebec City, I think.
Oh, Quebec City. Okay.
Yeah.
I went to Ottawa a couple years ago.
Yeah,
how's
that?
Yeah, it was good.
That's good.
Yeah.
So I guess what I'm saying is, my core question is, what is the essence of Giant Bomb that you're selling? What is the tagline for why people should support this new Giant Bomb?
I still think it's unlike anything out there. There is kind of a ragtag sense of what we do. There is an authenticity to what we do that, like, other people have harnessed that. I think you've harnessed that. I think Kind of Funny.
We're different than Giant Bomb. People make the comparison every once in a while, and I'm like, I don't think we feel like
it's a different
Giant
vibe.
Bomb.
It is, but it is. I mean, yours is. I don't consider us like cynics or anything at Giant Bomb, but I do think we're a little like you guys are very, very just like positive, you know.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's
I mean,
a
the
weird,
whole
it's a
thing is
weird
like
mix.
games, friends, and getting better, right? Like,
Yeah. But then again, it's like, you know Jeffem pretty well. Like, he can be a real dour...
Ray of sunshine.
Yeah, straight shooter. And so it's a funny thing of like having this reputation as like Mr. Rogers, but it's like, we're not really that. Like, it's just like a weird mix
you
of
bleep
like...
curses.
Well, that's true.
You say it's about games, friends, and getting better. That's a very
We do
positive.
say
that's
that
a
every video.
That's a very positive message.
Right, and that is for sure the message, and it is sweet that people latch onto for sure. But it is like, yeah, I don't want to give the impression that we're, I don't know, like a lot of it comes from like the bleeping thing is just like I liked doing the Game Informer show. Like I'm editing, I might as well bleep this. It's fine, and I liked getting feedback of people being like, hey, I'm a new parent, I want to drive my kids to school and listen to a gaming podcast. Give me a break.
I don't care about the kid demographic, really. It's not really
Not
what
for the kids, but for the parents. Like, yeah, we can do that. Like, that's no problem.
It's fine.
But like, so the new message for Giant Bomb is "F the kids, let them burn."
That's always been the message of Giant Bomb is "F the kids." We don't care. But like, again, we're not trying to be like edgy or cynical, or it's not like it's just. I don't know. I think you guys are more positive than the norm.
I think, if I may, not to make this about MinnMax again, but I think that might be true. But I think that's also a result of us. We have 9 of us, right? And so we can swap in on the podcast for whoever wants to talk about stuff.
Sure. So you get less where it's like, I'm bored and being a jackass while people are talking about a JRPG.
Exactly.
You
It's
just have 4 people
exactly
that want to talk about the JRPG.
Hey, who's excited to talk about this? It's not like, Kyle Hilliard, you're talking about Civ 7 at 7 o'clock sharp.
Okay.
And if it's like, oh, well, I don't know. You know, it's like we only swap in and we're like, hey, you want to talk about this? Yeah. And sometimes it's people who are like, I want to talk about it because I was really disappointed by it. But by and large, it's people like, I want to talk about this because I really like Despelote. I want to rave about that game. And so that gives the impression maybe that we're all gaga about games all the time, but it's just that we have such a big group that we can swap around,
No, but I mean, you're. I think when you don't like something, you're not afraid to say it.
Yeah.
And you don't go knives out on it.
Right.
And to be fair, I don't really try to anyway. I did plenty of that, and like I don't know, I felt like an idiot enough times about like, oh, I would just play this stupid, and I was just going too hard on it.
I feel like you were in soft mode, by the way, for Red Dead. Have you? What would you say about Red Dead 2 at this point? Would you say it's a good game?
Yeah, I do. I don't think I didn't come around as strong as I did on Death Stranding.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
But I did get to a point of like really appreciating what it was doing. And honestly, if it hadn't been for some other stuff that came out around that time, I still think I want to go back to it.
Okay, so you're willing to look in that camera and say Red Dead Redemption 2, good game?
Red Dead Redemption 2 is a good game. There you go.
The champion has crumbled.
Not like Death Stranding 2, which is an excellent game.
Okay. It had nothing to do with them flying you to Tokyo and kissing Kojima's ass in person.
I came around on Death Stranding long
I know.
And I've met it. Look, we've made wonderful content before with Mr. Kojima.
Oh, the best content. How do you want to handle that? I mean, I'd imagine those opportunities aren't going to be lined up on a silver platter without the GameSpot connection of preview events and stuff like that.
I there might be some that like some recent ones I did were through like the GameSpot thing of like kind of tomorrow being like, oh, there's this this trip here, this trip there, or whatever. But like I don't know, Giant Bomb still got invited. Like Gamescom specifically flew out. Giant Bomb.
Well, that was weird because it's like they're reaching out like, hey, do we want Giant Bomb to be here versus we want GameSpot?
They also sent GameSpot out, but like
yeah.
So like. There were plenty of things where it's like, oh, like me and someone from GameSpot would be sent out to something. So it's like, we're not even a week in, but I assume we're still, we're still Giant Bomb. I still know all these people. I'd have to imagine.
You still remember me, right?
Yeah.
By the way, that's welcome to Independent. It's a lot of, you remember us, right? Like,
well, we have the same name.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm sure if people aren't like watching social media and stuff, they might just think like, oh yeah, it's Giant Bomb,
Yeah, I guess that's true. That's a nice part.
And if anything, we have more people watching our stuff now than we did maybe 6 months ago when we were getting invited to stuff, so yeah.
So the pitch for what you're selling for Giant Bomb is, we've been around for a long time, we feel different.
If you've ever enjoyed the spirit of Giant Bomb and what it is, and the willingness, it's that mix of Giant Bomb was founded on like old school games media, traditional games media, guys coming from GameSpot, and breaking up and doing something weird and funny and unlike anything else.
Saying the system.
And yeah, kind of like and I do think that still exists here, where, and here's where it's important to be open to shifting as well, because it is 5 guys now that have been part of traditional games media and are now doing different funny things and things like that. But we can't just be 5 aging dudes, So it's like, and
I see the end of that train track. Yeah.
Well, right. Like, I mean, you can just rest on your laurels and just stick with that same audience forever.
Right.
Or like, the ideal end game to this is if this thing is a huge success and we have money as a company where we can do this thing. Look, one of the highlights of the last couple of years of working at Giant Bomb was we had a freelance budget. That's how we got Mike Minotti in there, Nikki Grayson, Turbo Sean, working with Bailey. She wasn't a freelancer, but you know what I mean. Like younger, so it's not just a bunch of 40-year-old dudes. Like that would be an incredible end goal. Is if this thing goes as well as it possibly could, that we can start bringing in some new voices and returning voices that we we want to work with all of them.
And you're on the track to that being achievable, you think?
We're 5 days in. Like that is the goal. I'm gonna work on this in a way where it's like that is the goal is to get there. But I mean, if you're asking me 5 days in, it's like, oh, you think you're gonna do that?
And
like,
I am. Yeah, but I mean, the upside of having the numbers public would be if we hit this sub goal, this person's coming back. We hit this sub goal, this person's coming back.
And again, I don't like that. Honestly, hasn't even really been talked. There's like 40 other things that need to be figured out.
Yep,
before
I get it.
Yeah.
Yep, pros and cons to everything for sure. What do you think?
I always love when you start laughing before the question. It's always a good sign.
Just because tonally I don't think this question works, but what do you think was your biggest mistake over the last 3 years of Giant Bomb? Mr. Infallible Lucky Man. Everything works out for me. What were you like, that was a bad call? That was on you.
I think because, and I've always had a little bit of this in me, I think because as a result of like, getting a paycheck week after week, no matter what, and I think I leaned a little too into like antagonizing the audience at times being like, oh, you don't like it when I say wrestling terms? Well, I'm going to say it 1,000,000 times now. Or like,
that's funny. I didn't notice that as a listener.
The wrestling terms?
Did you use wrestling terms on the podcast?
We did. We said a couple. And like, we probably still will say them, but like, I did have kind of like, when someone tells me not to do something, you may have noticed, I buck pretty hard and I go completely in the other direction.
Who told you not to use wrestling terms instead of me?
I guess the audience.
Yeah.
You know, the audience.
Because it objectively sucks to be alienated, yeah.
Sure, but again, look, here's where I'll push back on that. This fucking industry, how many people are going to say their waifus and their senpais and stuff like that, and everyone's like, oh, this is, or I ship these characters together. Slang exists in so many different forms.
I agree.
And I don't watch anime, so I don't know these things. How is that any different than you don't watch wrestling and I say shoot or work?
I'm just saying, if you were listening to a podcast, a gaming podcast, and I kept slipping in Survivor terminology, and eventually you'd be like, this is dumb. What is this? I don't understand the words that this person's saying.
I've listened to plenty of things or conversations where people say, like, notice me, senpai, and I have to be like, what the does that mean? You know,
it's in the common vernacular now, notice me, senpai. We understand it, we appreciate it.
I don't know. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but what I could have done
From the
better,
outside, it's obnoxious.
Well, so is that stuff, like the anime stuff. But how's it different?
Dan, I listen to 20 hours of podcast every week. The amount of times I've heard the phrase, notice me, senpai, maybe twice over the last 20 years.
I think every time I hear that stuff, though, I just get irrationally angry. Just like, ah.
Dan, because it's not your subculture. That's why. That's how people feel about wrestling.
Did we all have to not say any slang?
Your vocabulary's filled with slang. I also wanted to throw a brick through into you're like, I don't use slang words. Like, it's English language.
I don't say slang words to sound cool. I say slang things to antagonize an audience.
Okay.
Which is where my mistake was.
So today's the day. No more wrestling terms.
No, I'm not going to say that at all.
He's officially saying it.
I'm just saying I need to be more mindful of maybe specifically with the audience, because like they are literally the ones keeping us going at this point. And it's probably a stupid thing to see people complaining about something on Reddit or something and have my knee-jerk reaction be like, oh yeah, you don't like that motherfuckers? Well, let's crank it up. You know, like that's a stupid thing to do.
Does that bleed into the idea of being like, I can survive being put in a meat grinder, no problem. Like that cool Dan Ryckert mentality.
I think I've toned that down.
No, you have not. No, you have not.
But
I can operate on my own knee.
That's just funny. That's a comical scenario. I don't mean that. Like, and also, that's just like...
Okay, so you just have a flag for the visual viewers that's like red light, green light of like, I mean this versus I don't mean this.
Okay, do I say red light?
You say it as Tom Cruise.
Oh, if only there was a one-word way I could say that. Oh, shoot or work.
As we call it, real and not real.
Can I say, I'll play this game, but can I say shoot and work?
No! Because that's defeating the purpose of the game.
Okay.
The point is to not annoy people.
I will say, I mean that, or I'm joking.
You say I mean that every time.
Test me.
Play the clip from the last Bombcast. You're like, I'm dead serious. I can operate on my own knee.
I don't think I said I was serious about it.
Check the tape.
If you were like a great knee doctor, couldn't you replace your own knees?
No, it would be very
Dan,
painful.
Dan, use your head. What do you mean?
No, I bet you could. I'm not kidding.
I wouldn't be able to do either the vasectomy or the knee thing.
Okay. I'm going to knee you in your vasectomy if you keep this attitude up. I'll tell you that much, buddy.
Jeez.
Let's see. Oh, here's a tough question. Here's a hard hitter. Do you like to feel cool?
I don't think I've ever felt... I felt cool once in my life.
Yeah.
And it's when I caught that hot dog.
Yeah, we all agreed.
Look it up.
That was cool.
Dan catches a hot dog at PAX.
That was Obama catching the fly moment. There's no doubt.
The one time I think I've ever felt cool.
Here's what I'm projecting onto you.
Yes.
Is the few times in my life where I've been in a room where people have been like, oh, MinnMax. Like, and they think, I don't know, that like appearing on MinnMax would explode their career or something. It's like that tension of like, oh, this person wants something from me. And it's a weird vibe in this room because of it. It's very, very rare. I want to explain that. Everyone's very sweet. And I love the game industry.
You can, when it's happening that way, you can tell.
You can feel it.
Oh, like immediately. Yes.
At the same time, it's also a bad feeling when I'm in a room and it's like no one knows who MinnMax is, and I feel a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, oh, we're like a decently big gaming podcast, but like that's fine. You haven't heard of it, that's fine. And so I'm trying to just project that concept onto you of like, do you ever feel that idea of like damned if you do, damned if you don't? Of like, I'm either scrambling to be like, no, we're a real thing, versus if you feel like you're a real outlet, it also feels gross. It's like, I don't want any pressure. It's all fine.
I don't think I've ever thought about that.
Okay.
I think like there are times where it's like, you know, if I'm walking by a line for a PAX panel and there's, you know, 100, 200 people lined up or something, and I walk by and they're cheering and stuff and taking pictures. Like, of course I'm like, no, I mean that has happened for like 10 years. It's look,
Ryckert.
No, it is our core group. I'm not saying like
yeah,
walking out and Target, you know.
Yeah.
But like, of course that feels good to like see a bunch of people that love the stuff that you do as a group, and you walk by and they're like, hell yeah, and they're excited to see your show. Like, I don't know, feeling cool is the thing. It feels good, you know.
Yeah, feeling wanted.
Or just feeling like people like the stuff you're doing. I don't really think about feeling wanted or validated or are we a real outlet or not. I don't really think about that.
Giant Bomb's kind of your grandfathered in as a real outlet. Like you're set. You're not going to have that weird chip on your shoulder like I think MinnMax does. And by MinnMax I mean me.
Yeah, I guess I haven't really, because like I joined Game Informer how long into its run? You know, like 25 years or something into its run.
Oh my God.
And so like Game Informer was established since I was a child, which is why I wanted to work there. So I went Game Informer to Giant Bomb. And like I can't empathize with the like, oh, does anyone know what this place is?
Right.
Like,
But it's also weird if they do. It's a weird mix.
I think it's weird if people don't know you and what you have done. Because at this point, you were every month flying out to every studio doing the best interviews I've seen with anyone in the games industry.
Game Informer could have been done a lot better. If I could do that all again, I'd have much more set structure of like more stuff like rapid fire and pushing it, you know.
Sure.
Because there are plenty of studios that are like, I don't want to do rapid fire, but I think if that was more like, this is our thing, and that was the idea that I was trying to get to eventually, is like, we have a set number of shows, like one of them was like, rapid fire interview at Game Informer, or the big question, like what is the one question you want to ask about this game? So for example, it was like Call of Duty Black Ops 4. It was like, okay, we're just going to have one interview that's about where is the campaign? What happened to the campaign?
Sure.
You know, just like the obvious thing.
Yeah.
And so that was the idea. It's like I wanted to get more into the idea of like, we have our suite of like 6 shows or concepts for interviews, and then we would kind of like allocate them appropriately for each cover story. We never quite got there, and it drove me nuts. Most of the time it was just, and I think of like the first 5 years of Game Informer is kind of a wash for me creatively.
It's separated from like specific content that was made. I just think like anyone who has talked to you, which at this point is pretty much everyone in the industry, it's pretty f***ing obvious how passionate and knowledgeable you are about it.
Oh, that's very sweet. Could be better. Could be a lot better, but I appreciate that. It's definitely noted.
Do you want another? I can get another.
Yeah, go ahead and get it.
Yeah.
Here's something that I genuinely don't think we ever talked about.
Okay.
And I don't know, I'm prefacing this by saying like, it's not a matter of, I don't know, it feels gross to ask. But when you were considering like, oh, where do I go in this industry? What does my future look like? Was there ever a part of you of like, oh, maybe I do want to join MinnMax. Maybe that'd be a thing. If we had the money for it, was it ever a thing of like, oh, that'd be an interesting endpoint?
You know, like the idea was there, and that like we've been very good friends for 15 plus years.
Yeah.
We live next to each other again. I think we do have a major difference in, especially like, look, I got paid well for a long time now, and I don't think I ever seriously considered it, because it's like I wouldn't want to ask Ben for that much money.
Yeah.
You know, like I would rather, I think, do my own thing, and sky's kind of the limit on that, you know, versus ask you for this and you laugh at me, you know?
Yeah, I mean, again, it's nice that this conversation never happened, because that'd be a really uncomfortable conversation.
Sure.
Of like, I love you dearly, respect your work dearly, but I cannot imagine a worse world than arguing about your salary. Like that would be...
And that is the thing that like
kryptonite.
In every job I've ever had, I have been firm about like, okay, I'm getting this raise, I am getting this thing, and like,
and I will not be fired,
and I will not shut the f*** up until I get what I want, you know.
Yep.
So, and I wouldn't want that, you know. It's like, don't go into business. I say as I went into business with my friends, but it's equal. So it's equal. So
no, that is a real blessing.
Yes, it really is, because I think that sidesteps a lot of issues. Because like, yeah, it would not be worth risking my friendship with you to go into business and then being like, motherfucker, pay me more.
Yeah. I would rather 5% more, and I'm pissed about it, which is totally fair. That's what money does to people, you know. But that would be such a rough spot to be in.
I would rather do my own thing and then just show up on MinnMax stuff whenever you ask, and you know.
And yeah, that is the way I've seen it too. Is like, hey, we'll pay you well when you want to pop in on MinnMax stuff, and I feel like the odds of there being bad feelings or bad vibes about this are zero.
It's the easiest sell in the world. Like, oh, go hang out and do something fun with my friend and I get some money? Like, okay, great.
Yeah, yell at Leo Vader while he goes through the drive-thrus and I'll pay you a couple $100.
I will never, have I ever said no to you once if it wasn't a scheduling thing?
No.
Exactly, right?
Yeah, that is the great gift of our structure, I think, is hopefully we can instill that vibe on everybody that's involved with MinnMax of like, this seems like a great win. What's the downside? You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which segues to, is there any chance owning Giant Bomb is secretly a curse? Is there going to be something of like, oh God, the tech debt on this website
I mean, that's
is dragging us down.
That's why, that's why these things get so complicated and take so long and everything. It's like all those calls and stuff that the Jeffs had to have with lawyers and everything just to make sure everything's on the level, everything's good, and both sides. Like, yeah, I mean, so that's the type of thing that like is well vetted. I mean, it's important that we went into this correctly and didn't just sign stuff, and again, I'm not taking any credit for that. That was the Jeffs and all those calls, but like, we got a lawyer and everything that. All that stuff was looked at, and I really do think both sides are very happy with it.
Yeah. 10 years from now, where do you think Giant Bomb's at?
Oh, God. This is like us doing the Lake podcast for no one to hear.
I literally had that written down.
Did you? Oh, man.
Because I was like, I bet Dan doesn't even remember that weird time capsule podcast we did.
No, we recorded it, and we listened to it. Remember, like, a few years ago, we listened. I think we were at, like, Tim's wedding or something.
Oh, God,
and we listened to it. Yeah, it might have been drunk. I don't know. But, like, we did sit down and listen to it.
It was like you and I and Tim Turry and Brian Vore.
Was Brian? Yeah. We sat in, like, a camper on your lake lot and talked about, like, I was just leaving Game Informer.
That's right.
And it was like, where's Game Informer in 5 years? Where's Giant Bomb in 5 years?
Where's our family? Where are our relationships? It was...
Exactly.
It'd be raw to listen to.
And all of our situations were very different at the time. Yeah. So... The question was, 5 years from now?
10 years.
10 years from now. I mean, look, I'm going to say the thing that anybody going into a new venture
Dan's being interviewed if
he
used the word look. He never uses the word look.
I say look.
No, you don't.
Look at that. Look at
Well, you say look at me. But
that's right. That is my thing, yeah.
At the end of the day, I just got to say.
I would like this, in a perfect world.
Yeah.
This is great and sustainable. And we can grow, and we can bring new people in, and I can do. Look, all I've wanted to do since I was a kid is get paid to do things I find fun, and never have to really grow up, and never have to really be an adult, and just basically lean as hard as I can into everything I loved in 1997, and make a career out of it.
And make out with Wendy Moira Angela Darling every day of your life.
The hell is that?
That's not important.
Okay, I mean literally since I got the first Game Informer when I was 9 years old, I was like that was the goal from 1993, I guess. Yeah,
and your career has been 95% that.
I mean. Outside of like some meetings I didn't like and things like that, like I don't know that
I don't like this one.
I don't know that's a full 5%. Even though like the WWE stuff that sucked, it's
WWE.
I was still like backstage at WrestleMania when Stone Cold comes back for like crazy bucket lists. So like I don't regret any of it. I wouldn't change any of those career decisions by any means. So like I think it's been like 100% what I've wanted since I've been 9, and I just want to keep that up.
So the idea is. Giant Bomb sustainable until you're 67 and then you retire and go live on the beach.
I mean, if I'm still doing that shit and I'm still having fun, why would I even stop?
Okay.
It's like, it's not a goal to like make enough money to retire. It's a goal to have fun until I die. Yeah. And this is what I find fun, and it hasn't gotten old to me. I've seen games journalists and people like, get jaded and hate it and complain about like, I always said like I would see people in EGM complaining about like, oh, I'm going to E3, I hate this. And it's like, you need to get the out of the industry because I want to do that more than anything.
I am not naming names, but I have encountered that recently in my life of people who have like a dream scenario and like, oh, it sucks.
I have no patience for that.
You should throw those people out of windows.
And it's tough too because like there are very real concerns about like overwork and underpayment and like game journalism stuff. But like,
of course,
I remember a thing when Polygon started and they did that press reset video.
I just rewatched that.
I did too, and I remember all of us at the office, a lot of watching that and just being like, these motherfuckers, just like, oh god, they're super self-serious and then and like. A lot of people in that video even I'm good friends with.
I agree. I like almost everybody. Yeah.
There was a thing I can't remember if it was like Griffin or someone, and it's like again this could just be the way it was edited or something. Like it was just a very obnoxiously edited. We're gonna change the internet.
It's specifically you just think of Arthur Geese getting tattooed while being interviewed that you hate. It's just that moment that you hate. You can just say you hate that.
No, I was gonna actually bring up the Griffin thing where he was like he was talking about like a Final Fantasy game where he's like. yeah, it's like, the way it used to be, like before Polygon, I had to play like 14 hours of Final Fantasy over the weekend for my job. And I remember being like, are you fucking kidding me? You're about to play a video game on the weekend? And that's like, and again, I love Griffin. Griffin's great. Yeah. But like, the idea of anyone ever complaining about like, oh, I had to play a video game.
But you do understand.
And that's why I couched it. I couched it with the like, there are very real, because like, look, they will pay games journalists scraps. Look, fucking Valnet, I'm sure that's what they want to do, is they lay off a bunch of super talented Polygon writers, hire some people to churn out guides or whatever.
Well, they said they're only hiring Quad A writers.
That's right, Quad A all day is, like, it turns out they fired a lot of Quad A writers.
Yeah.
But like, that's all to say that like, I always bristle, so even now that I've like made it or whatever, at anyone like making it to the point where you're making a full-time living playing video games.
It's crazy.
And like, again, there's always very real things to complain about, but it's just like, I don't know, I can't tell you how many times I, was up till 3 a.m. playing a game for review or something, or like going into the office and we had to be chained to the desk for the DS reviews and stuff. And you remember that?
I never had to review a game ever in my life.
I remember playing like 50 hours of Mario and Luigi Dream Team over a weekend so I could beat it and write the review before I had to fly out on Sunday. Like,
it's a rough game. The one that killed me was Fatal Frame on the 3DS, where you had to be chained down when you're trying to take pictures as your 3DS was chained to the desk. So it was like, all right, is there a ghost 20 degrees to the left of me? To the 20 degrees to the right?
Yeah,
all right.
Face raiders spinning around in a chair. But like, hey, look, it's important to me that I don't want to sound flippant about like, because again, there's overwork, underpay, and there's like no fucking jobs. It's just, I think I always felt so strongly about this career path that just getting to do it that's how I have personally felt about it.
Right.
Even on the times where I've had to play a game over the weekend or work
as long as people aren't taking it for granted, because like this is a wild opportunity, and that's occasionally when I want to shake some shoulders, like, do you see how lucky you are right now?
Exactly.
Let me bring you like on a It's a Wonderful Life journey of the average job, please.
Well, that's right. It's like I rarely, like with serious topics and politics and stuff, like I'm never the one talking about it really on content or anything.
But here we go.
But no, I'm going to talk about when I do rarely get really fired up about something.
Yeah.
It is like that Philippe Musin story. Remember back in the day?
Yes.
And I remember I was on the Beastcast. And
this is the IGN writer who plagiarized his review.
Yeah, stuff like that, like plagiarism and stuff like that. I take that extremely seriously, because it's like, do you know how many people, like this is their dream job, and how many people bust their ass day in and day out, writing a blog for 0 listeners, doing a Twitch stream for no viewers, just trying to make it to this dream of playing video games for a living and talking about it. And so anyone who is in that position and either like complains about it or doesn't take it seriously, or worse, something like plagiarism or something like that, I'm just like, go f*** yourself. Get the f*** out of here, and there's a million very talented people that would love to come in here and bust their ass.
It's a good question. A million? What is that number?
Oh, I'm sure there's a million.
30 million?
Like, and how many full-time jobs are there? Like, let's not say anything like what me or you do now, independent stuff. How many, like, you got a handful at IGN, you got a few people at Kotaku, and
there's a lot of sites it's like, there's Windows Central. I mean, like there are,
there are some,
I would say, I've heard the comparison. I think even Arthur Geese on Rebel FM, great podcast. I think he's even used that analogy of like, your odds are higher of playing in the NFL.
That's crazy.
It's true.
That's crazy. Yeah,
it's absolutely true.
And that's a great point. And I can't believe you made fun of his tattoo.
I don't remember what it was. I'm sure it looked cool.
Yeah, I take that extremely, because I mean, look, there are a lot of things I don't understand, believe it or not. And there's something if there's one thing more than anything I understand, it's this line of work and how much people want to get into this and take it seriously.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I get fired up about that.
So it's a tough balance of don't be an asshole, appreciate it. At the same time, I get that you have a family to feed.
Well, right, that's the thing. If I was ever in a actual EIC position, if I was ever in Andy McNamara's situation back when we lived there,
right.
I would definitely never be the listen, motherfuckers, you better not this Glengarry Glen Ross, I need you coffees for closers type thing. No, I think I would be like,
wow, it's like I'm at the play.
Suck it, Bill Burr, whoever plays that character now.
The most famous actor to ever play that part. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. No, I don't think I would have ever been that guy, but I don't know. When I see people really pushing hard and working hard, I'm like, yeah, hell yeah. You know, but also if I see someone being like, I'm going to value my mental health and I'm going to clock out and put my phone away at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. I'm like, hell yeah, good for you.
Yep.
So it's like, just don't be a monster about it, you know?
Yeah. And just smile every once in a while.
Come on! Smile!
If you're on a trip that's paid for to cover games, you better have a goddamn smile on your face, is my point.
To this day, I've been on 200-300, I don't know, trips where I've been paid to go play video games.
Yeah.
I just got back from Montreal. I'm sitting there eating a bagel and drinking a coffee, like, look at this.
You give me a free bagel?
This is my job, and I don't have to pay for this bagel.
Stuffing bagels
Go play
in
a
your
video
pockets.
game? Yeah.
Buck, we got bagels for days when I get home. Ooga, ooga.
I do have like 8 pounds of Japanese candy up there that I expensed.
Expensed.
Oh, dude.
Thanks, Fandom.
And in corporate life, first thing I do, go to a 7-Eleven or something, I will buy, okay, the maximum before a receipt needed is $25. I'm buying $24.98 worth of candy, put it in the hotel room.
My version of that, look at this cool guy move. My version of that, MinnMax, every time I use the corporate card and I have the option to leave a tip,
Yeah.
max tip every time.
Whoa. That's the thing, though, is like now, and we talked about this at the panel, the switch flipped immediately. When it's my business card got canceled on that PAX trip. And so it literally was like the first day or two there, be like, yep, give me those Twizzlers. Oh, that looks good. Okay, I'll DoorDash that. Like, that's great. And then it got canceled.
My Twizzlers budget.
And I immediately was like, oh, hang on. And like, even like once we're up and running and everything, it's like, this isn't just some company's money I'm spending. This is like my friends. Like, I can't do that. And I would not even consider doing that.
Do you think it's going to change dramatically?
My like experience
Purchasing?
on trips and stuff? Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to be a thing where it's like, I'm going to be more selective. Like, I'm not going to get room service if I'm just like, oh, I could eat a little bit and order a whole thing of macaroni and cheese and a beer, you know? Like, I'm not going to do that. You know what I mean? Like, I
eat a little bit.
Like, if it's like, oh, I could eat something, you know, like, maybe now I'll go to the 7-Eleven and buy a Snickers bar instead of like, spend $28 to get room service macaroni and cheese and a beer or something like that. Right. So
every person's dream. Yeah, it is a weird thing to try and even out. It's like, I mean, I've talked about it 1,000 times, but it's just so fascinating to like see all the numbers for an outlet, see how much is in our war chest, be like, okay, what is on trips? How much flexibility do we have for like one-offs? It's like, hey, go nuts. You know, like if a couple people are meeting up on the MinnMax crew, like, hey, go out to a nice dinner. I mean, not some fancy pants dinner, but like have a good time, get a bottle of wine. That's on MinnMax, right? That seems totally fair.
I think my approach is going to be more like, hello, friend that works at large company that is on this trip as well. Let's go get dinner. You can expense this, right?
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's it. We already did that right before our PAX panel.
It's gonna be fascinating. Who could it be? All right. Hey, anything you want to talk about that we haven't talked about?
I mean, it's so early that it's so early. Like, I'm sure if you'd ask me 3-6 months from now, I'll have some different thoughts and everything. But more than anything, I'm just very excited. I do like the idea of success or failure being on me and my friends and not anyone else's decisions. And I mean, there's no way to see into the future. You asked about 10 years in the future, there's no way to know this is, smashing success or, hey, we gave it our best bet and, it's tough out there, Like, I don't know. But I know we all are putting everything we've got into it. And I think the early response, both financially and certainly sentiment-wise, has been unbelievably positive.
Yeah.
So I just don't know where everything shakes out. But it's not going to be a thing. Like, there's no scenario in which 6, 7, 8 months go by and numbers aren't how we like it and we coast or quit or something like that. Like, no, we're in this, like, we're in this.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I mean, not to make you paranoid. I remember talking to the Nextlander guys about this. I mean, you have a huge boost right now. Mm-hmm. The rest of your life, you will feel that you were just the top half of an hourglass of sand coming out, of people dropping out on a daily basis.
I've got that folder of Graphtreon lines. I see how they go.
But
they don't have to. They don't have to. I see yours.
Yeah, we've been pushing. Mm-hmm. But you got to keep pushing in a big way. But you guys have got it.
And I will keep sending you texts like, we need to go get some beers. And then like we go to a bar and I'm like, okay, what do we do about this? Yeah. Yes.
All right, now the next 30 minutes, we got to unpack All Systems Goku. You're on Gersman saying it's coming back.
Yeah.
You'd love for it to come back. It was implied that it was not going to be a giant bomb thing. Was that your understanding as well?
That has not worked out by any means,
Okay.
but it's just, I don't know. It's we each have our separate things, and it's just like, I don't know. Not going to announce anything now. All we are saying now. Look. is we want to do it.
Yeah, of course.
We intend on doing it.
Yeah.
This year, by the end of the year, I'd imagine. Like, obviously, you've got a few months ahead of me. Really got to focus on the Giant Bomb stuff. But yeah,
you could go every direction. This is
we're gonna do original.
Dan and Jeff Gerstmann's podcast covering Dragon Ball Z was the original run.
Yeah,
the
so we
idea.
did Dragon Ball Z Kai, for the original one, and that is
Controversial.
all,
Kai, I got it.
Sure.
Well, the music is just not as good. But it's so sweet and breezy that you can't resist it. But
You listen to the podcast?
every episode.
You enjoyed it?
I know Dan has a terrible memory. Yeah. Okay. I kissed stressed about it for years. It's so fun to listen to. My pitch, and I'm curious to hear the community's take, my pitch for the dream scenario for All Systems Goku returning would be you do the Dragon Ball Super movies. You launch it with that because it is pure joy. There are, 5 Dragon Ball Super movies at this point? Easy to watch, fun as hell.
So you're saying higher tier gets the movies.
Because there's the Dragon Ball Super series, which is good.
Okay.
No doubt about it.
We would get to that.
Gets a little bit long.
Okay.
And I worry about schedules and diving into original Dragon Ball because it's long, right? But if there's just 5 episodes of these super freaking fun Dragon Ball Super movies, specifically, they are funny. They are just like a comedic celebration of the silliness of Dragon Ball.
Like that?
By and large, those Dragon Ball Super movies, right? So that'd be such a clean entry point, and then go back and do the original Dragon Ball. Because what, as a huge Dragon Ball Z fan, what I want to hear you talk about most is specifically that first Dragon Ball Super movie, because I think it is so freaking fun, and it is the perfect tone for we love this stuff, but it's kind of dumb. It is perfect.
I feel like you're probably going to see the original Dragon Ball first.
That's so long.
I got nowhere to be.
Well, all right. Gerstmann's got 18 kids, but all right.
But I think we're going to try to do 3 episodes.
Yeah.
I think. But if I were to guess, we would probably just kind of go chronologically between OG Dragon Ball, which people seem to like a lot, to GT, which could be funny because people seem to hate it.
God,
to Super. And then all the movies in order of release. That's how I would.
But the tough thing is the first 2 movies of Super, they turned into seasons of the show. So you'd have to kind of
I will consult with you. We'll have one of those
it's
bar
a mess.
nights.
It's a mess. Yeah, you can't
Before
do it.
any decision is made, I will consult with you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, man. Thanks for letting me in your humble home.
And of course. Always.
Last chance to speak your mind.
It's 5 days in.
Nothing left to say.
Give me a few months and we can do this again.
Oh, Leo had one final question, by the way. He said, is Jeff Grubb cool in person?
Jeff Grubb is top tier person.
Top. What makes him top tier person?
He is the ideal, I think in sports they call him a 5-tool player. In wrestling,
5-tool?
I think it's a 5-tool player. They say in baseball or something. To me, I think of a wrestler that can do it all, where it's they can work in the ring.
Who is he in wrestling?
I mean, a lot of people could point to Flair. He could talk. He could wrestle.
Not the nasty parts.
Not the human being part, but as just a professional wrestler, So I'm saying Jeff Grubb's the Ric Flair of video games. No, I'm not.
He's saying it repeatedly.
No, I'm saying in that he does that morning show every day. Except Tuesday where he does the news on the podcast. And he just every fucking day puts it together, analyzes it. I mean, he makes it seem effortless. He brings in names from the industry and gives them a platform. And so many people that I was not familiar with before he started bringing them on, who I've become friends with or followed and really respect their thoughts. And but Grubb himself, seeing how we can just weave through all these stories and just riff on things. It's the same way I felt about when Gerstmann, I would watch him do the E3 the couch things, where it's I was always amazed at dude never had notes, never had a plan,
bonkers.
never if I was in his position, I would be I'd have a million things, I'd be a mess. He just goes out there and he just has such a knowledge of the industry. He's able to have 6 disparate people from the industry on there and keep everyone involved and keep talking. Grubb also does that for our night shows. And so Grubb's doing that, Grubb's doing the news, but also Grubb can dress up like Batman and play a shitty GameCube game and be one of the funniest fucking people I've ever been on a video with. Grubb is, I cannot say enough great things about Jeff Grubb. Like,
there we go.
Yeah, he is, he's absolute critical. He's Mount Rushmore of people I've ever worked with.
Wow. The rest of the guys are just fine. That's very sweet. Shout out to Tim Turry, I guess.
Yeah, he's also there. Yes.
The rest of the guys are good too. All right, Dan, thank you so much. GiantBomb.com/join.
GiantBomb.com/join. Please keep it alive. Let us see you in the comments and everything. Blight Club, if you haven't watched in a while, that's a good on-ramp there. Check out Blight Club, where we have Mike Minotti playing Rascal right now, and he looks very cool.
Best of the best. Cool. Thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. Subscribe to MinnMax's YouTube channel if you enjoy it. There's more interviews like this. I mean, not exactly like this, but more professional, I guess.
Down here?
Yeah.
What are you
Most
doing?
developer interviews are happening down here. We have a rapid fire with Kamiya coming up.
Yeah.
Soon. We recorded it. And I'm curious to see how it's received. The editing's going to be interesting. It was like, the recurring bit was me begging Kamiya, like,
Can you make me as cool as your characters? Can you make me as cool as Dante and
A
Bayonetta?
makeover.
yeah. And it went okay. So look forward to that coming up soon at MinnMax, everybody.
Excellent.
All right, thanks so much, everybody. Goodbye.
Bye.
If you thought, hey, this video wasn't bad, well, there's a whole lot more like it on MinnMax's YouTube channel. Please help us out by subscribing to our channel and checking out the MinnMax Show podcast, also available on your favorite podcast app, the best, most thorough discussion about games on the internet with the deepest dive, our monthly community trivia show with prizes called Trivia Tower, and a whole lot more. Thanks so much for your support, everybody. All you gotta do is click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate it.